The Tongsheng mid-drive motor, and it's there's lots of other videos on YouTube, which is which I watched to fit it, and it was reasonably easy. Although, to be honest, if you look down there, you can see that this plastic casing, which holds a large gear, it's quite close up against the chainstay there. In fact, it's touching. And when you get the kit, it comes with various spacers, and I don't know if you can see, but just down in there against the bottom bracket casing, I have got one spacer. So maybe really I should have had two spacers that side instead of putting them that side. But there is some scope for moving the whole assembly from left to right and getting it lined up properly with these spacers, but you only get three, so there's not really a great deal of leeway. And I mean, if you look at that chainstay as well, you can see it's got an indent there. So I guess that's so when you're using a triple chain set that your ring doesn't knock on the chainstay, but they're pretty tucked away. Quite a thin chainstay, and this isn't a plus bike or anything. It's not a 27, doesn't have the big tires on it, so that's something you can consider really. If your chainstays are they flare out quite wide, then you might be having problems. And a rather rookie mistake which I made and this is because these crank arms, normally obviously it's very easy to tell left and right, because the right hand side crank has the chain set on it, but on when this comes as a kit, these come out of the box unattached, and I put them on the wrong way around, which was a bit embarrassing, because when I went for my first test ride, the pedals started coming undone, because the pedals have a thread which goes the opposite way to the rotational movement of the crank, so they don't come undone when you're going along. And because I had them on the wrong way, the crank's on the wrong side, then one of the pedals fell off on the road, and I slightly damaged the thread on the other side because that one came undone. But luckily I managed to get the pedal back in without cross-threading it, so I think I got away with that. But that's something to watch out for. I'm pretty sure they're labelled, but you can always carefully, the pedals are nearly always labelled, so you can always check very carefully which one goes in which, because they'll only go one way around. For the gears, I'm just using a 1x9 setup, and I'm on the back. The back cassette is a 1236 tooth cassette, 9-speed, and I went for the 12 tooth one because that bottom cog is the highest gear, is going to be taking a lot of load, so I thought maybe a slightly larger sprocket would spread the load a bit better. But spending an awful lot of time in that highest gear, because when you're on the flat or even a shallow uphill, the motor will pull up there just fine. And in fact, like the torque of this motor is really its strong point. It works best in a higher gear in terms of the level of assistance it gives you. But yeah, it's very muddy around where it lives, so I generally run full length cable out as where I can, because that stops they generally go a bit longer before getting clagged up. So I've got an old wheel set on here, which is some Sun Ringle rims, quite wide ones. They're a good quality welded rim. Quite important for this bike to have a good rear wheel at least, because so much weight is on the rear wheel. because I've gone for these high handlebars, which we'll get to in a minute, but nearly all your weight's on the back wheel really. And you've also got the extra weight from the battery to consider as well, which is probably getting on for 6 or 7 kilos. Yeah, so I've got one thing you definitely need if you've, I mean not definitely, but I think one thing which is probably highly recommended is to have disc brakes. I mean, rim brakes are okay, good quality ones, Maguras or something. But yeah, you do get a good speed up, and so I would say some disc brakes are probably a good option. I mean, most bikes have those now, but I've seen a couple of builds where people kind of do these on their, get a donor bike out of their garage or something, and they use like a really kind of like low quality bike, and that's a bit of a shame really, because the actual motor, it feels, it's, well, A, it's quite powerful, and B, I think really it deserves a sort of reasonable bike to be built up on. So for the battery, because this is a DIY job, I didn't have a rack mount battery, and the actual battery I'm using is quite a large lithium pack. It's a 26 amp hour one, which I had built for a cargo bike, which I'll leave a link for in the description. So I've just got this pannier bag, which is actually designed to go on the front pannier, a bit smaller than normal. But I figured that would give you a slightly lower centre of gravity, but there's also off centre, so I don't know. I just prefer panniers on the side really. Yeah, I've actually, on this one as well, I've gone for lights rather than running them off the battery pack, because I'd need some sort of step down converter to do that. I had a set of dyno, I've got a dyno hub on this front wheel anyway, so I'm running dynamo lighting for lights, and it's quite good as well, because obviously if your battery runs out, then you still got lights, or if you get an electrical problem. And they're just the lights I had hanging around, so pretty good. Same with the saddle, that's like, was on my cargo bike, I took it off there. But the actual controls for the motor, just have a look at those. So you've got on off button here, which you hold down for on or hold down for off. This enters the function menu, and this adjusts your power settings up and down. So you can actually use it without touching this, because nearly all the settings on here are actually also doubled up on these here buttons here. The light button isn't for the lights as far as I'm aware, it just switches on the backlight on the screen. So that's all that's for. And if I just plug it in a minute, I've got a 50 amp Anderson connector here. Which is a bit overkill. I expect this only really draws between 5 and 10 amps. So that's plugged in. I'll switch that on. And there's not a great deal of information on here really, because I haven't got the speed sensor on the back wheel. So you have there's a spare cable here. Where is it? Which I've just zip tied to the other ones. I think it's tucked in around the back there. But basically you zip tie that on this chainstay. There's a little magnet you clamp on the spokes, and then a little reader which you zip tie on here, and it counts the magnet as it goes around to give you, and being, you know, the tyre circumference, you can work out the speed. But the fact is, I don't really like having a screen on my bike, because when I'm out on a bike I want to be away from screens as much as possible, and so I don't really want to know what speed I'm going. Which I think the distance would be handy, but you can always work that out on Google Maps when you get home if you want to know. I just don't want to have data I don't want to be fed data when I'm riding a bicycle. Anyway, these little buttons here just adjust the various speed settings. Well, not speed settings, assistance level. So eco is very, very subtle. It hardly feels like you've got it on at all, to be honest. So that's, I haven't really used that one much. Tour, again, pretty subtle. Speed, you can definitely, these top two are quite similar in terms of level assistance they give. I just generally ride it on turbo the whole time because it's such good fun, and also sounds pretty cool as well, doesn't it? So yeah, you could switch it off here. Let's see if we can see the backlight. There you go. See this light button here switches the backlight on and off, or you can use this one here. Oh, it's not working. Yes, it is. And I won't bother doing the information menu because I haven't even used that. So a lot of people on the internet are talking about upgrading the firmware and all that sort of business. Now, I can see where you might do that, because when you're pedaling, sometimes it feels like the motor's not really helping you too much. So for example, when you come to a hill, you might have to start pedaling quite hard in order to maintain your speed, when in the back of your mind you're thinking actually the motor's got plenty more juice in it that it could give you if it wanted to. Because when you, like, say, start off pedaling, it's quite forceful in the way it speeds you up, and so you would expect that same kind of power to be available when you're going up a hill, but for some reason it doesn't work like that. And so I think that's why people redo the firmware on them, because they want them to be more generous with the power. But there you go. So on this one, I've got most of this stuff is just what I had hanging around in the garage. So tires, Schwalbe Moto X's. Frame is an old aluminium frame I've had for donkey's years, and it's been built into about 3 different bikes. And sort of fairly bog standard Shimano hubs. I've got an Avid BB7 mechanical disc brake on the front, a no-name disc brake on the back, Brooks saddle. On this these forks, I actually welded an extra section on top of the head tube, about that much longer, just because I wanted a really nice upright ride. Well, no, an upright ride isn't everyone's cup of tea, but for me it is. And so that is pretty nice to be sat upright, whizzing along on your electric bicycle, and you can see everything that's going on around you, and you're not got your face down staring at the tarmac, and it's pretty nice going, to be honest. Some old brake levers, switch over for donkeys, 9-speed shifters, old handlebar. I might replace that actually, because a bit suspect of old aluminium handlebars, you know, fatigue, metal fatigue and all that business. Yeah, so pretty happy with it really. And I've just got to be strict with myself now and make sure that I don't use it for shorter trips where I could use my normal bike, because that's important fitness, and I don't want to miss out on that. So I've got a 10-mile rule. If it's less than 10 miles one way, then I'll go on my normal bike, and if it's over 10 miles one way, then I'll go on this one. So that's it. Anyway, now we'll go over to a really badly video with me whizzing along on the bike a couple of days ago, and the sound quality is terrible. but there might be some more information that you can glean from watching that. Anyway, thanks very much for now, and all the best. Cheers. Bye.
Hey there, YouTubers. Just on my way back home. It's about 5 o'clock or thereabouts in January, and the light's fading, and the sheep are munching in the fields, and I'm just testing out this e-bike which I built or assembled. Not much actual making involved on this one. Bit of welding in the head tube, but that's about it. And I just thought I'd check in with you guys and give a few updates on how it's going, or not updates because this is the first video. So this is the Tongsheng motor I'm using, Tongsheng TSDZ2 or TSDZ2 motor, and it's pretty good. I've got I've just been talking to a friend of mine who builds recumbent bicycles with electric motors on them, and he said that this Tongsheng motor I'm using is quite timid in the amount of power that it delivers. And although I've never actually ridden on a pedal assist bicycle before, I don't really agree with it. It seems when you take it from a standstill, there's like a lot of power, but then you get up to a certain speed and it becomes a lot more reserved in the amount of power it will give you. I think it might be to do with something to do with the way the power is delivered, so based on torque rather than speed. I've heard this is torque sensing. I'm not really sure what that means, but it might be that it gives power, delivers its power better based on torque. Let me have another go at explaining that. So it senses the torque, it delivers more power if more torque is needed, but then when you're at a higher speed and the torque isn't so great, it delivers less power, which is fine because I guess that's when you need the power most, really, to get you up hills and things in high torque situations. Anyway, I could be talking through my butt there, but there you go. So a little tour of the bike as we're going along. There's my standard sort of setup with 26-inch wheels, fairly large fat tyres, and running some Schwalbe Supermoto X's on here, which are a good quality tyre, a bit heavy for pedalling around by manual means, but they're pretty good on this electric bike and nice and future-proof, which is good. I've also got a hub dynamo there as well, because that's what the lights I had, which is this old it's an 80 Lux one, which is pretty sweet. Using some really old gears on it and stuff, so I won't bore you with that, but it's a 1x9 setup, and I have read on the internet that you don't need many gears, and that's absolutely right, because to be honest with you, I'm changing gears from lowest gear to higher gear. I'll do that in 3 changes, like 3 at a time, because you just don't need the increments like you do when you're pedaling manually. So as you can see, I haven't got my speedometer turned on, or I haven't installed the little magnet on the rear wheel which does that. To be honest with you, I'm not really keen about having a screen on a bicycle. I look at screens all day. I don't really want another screen on my bike, which I'm looking at all the time. However, I do need that screen there because everything attaches to it and use it for adjusting the power setting, and even though you've got a button here which comes in the pack, you don't you still need to plug it into the back of this thing, so it's kind of there just because I got plugged. You don't actually need this little switch here, you can just do it all on there, but being it came in the box, I thought I'd put it up there now to where my thumb is, so I can change the thing easily. But you really don't need to do much, to be honest, because there's nothing much to do really in terms of options. I guess if you are using a speedometer, which also measures the distance and stuff, then there's options on there for setting wheel sizes and that sort of thing. In terms of the speed, I guess this thing goes up to sort of low 20s, low 20 miles an hour, 23, 4 miles an hour, certainly not up to 30 miles an hour, but pretty brisk actually. And I've noticed while cycling on it, it's actually more, the feeling I get when I get home is a bit more like I've been driving. You've got to concentrate a lot harder because everything's whizzing past a lot faster. It sped up my journey time by a fair amount, and got a bumpy bit. Probably on the way to town, which I'm just coming back from. It's a shallow downhill all the way pretty much, so that's ideal when you're on a normal bicycle, but even that I've managed to shave off probably about 7.5 minutes on a 45-minute ride, which is a little bit quicker. And to be honest, the time I did it in today, I have done it on a normal bike, but utterly dishevelled when you get there and covered in sweat and no good for anything. Whilst today I arrived quite composed. So we'll just have a look at the back now. I'm not going to turn my head around because I don't want to crash, but we'll have a look at what's going on back there. So got some panniers and things, put stuff in. That's the socking great battery off my and I've just done about 15 miles on it. The return trip uphill all the way pretty much, although it's shallow, and hasn't really moved off full yet. The battery, it's like a 26 amp hour or something like that, so it's pretty big. This the 48 volt version of the motor, and 500 volts efficient setting. Obviously that's been limited to 250, which not everything is okay. I've noticed I was expecting this whine. You're going to get some of this from there's also that very slight grinding noise. That's a funny noise. I'm not sure whether that's going to be or not. But there you go, there's some observations. And at the moment I'm travelling up a hill I would normally crawl up in second to lowest gear, and at the moment I'm in second to highest gear, one-handed, not really pedalling very hard, and this baby is whizzing along. Nice job. Yeah, pretty good build really, I think. Quite happy with it. I had a few teething problems around well, actually the actual motor, that was very, very easy to do, no problem at all really. And got a passing cyclist, hello. And so all in all pretty good. Yeah, the motor was easy to fit. Most of the work really was putting the bike together, which I built half from bits lying around in the garage, and half from bits which I bought on the internet. And being going so fast, I would definitely recommend having disc brakes I mean, rim brakes are pretty good, but technically, I suppose, being acting on a larger circumference, they should be more powerful if you're using Doras or something. But yeah, I think you probably want disc brakes. I mean, I'm sort of testing this out at the moment. I'm hoping I will go back to my normal bike after I get a bit fed up with it, but because obviously that is better for me. Don't do as much exercise on this, although it's bloody cold today and I am getting the sweat up, so that's okay in that respect. But yeah, I'd probably say if you're a moderately fit chap and you really just want to extend the range you can travel sensibly when you're going out on for a beer or a meal with someone, then this is a good motor to get. You still feel like you've had a bit of a workout, and my friend Tom, who builds these for a living, he said the Fang ones, they're a lot more generous in the amount of power they give, but perhaps you don't really feel like you're riding a bike too much anymore, and but you definitely do with this. I mean, I'm a little bit out of breath, as you can tell, but yeah, it's really good. And how am I doing for time? Let's have a look. What time did I leave? Cripes. Wow. I mean, on the way home, generally it takes an hour and 10 minutes. I must be 2/3 the way there for half an hour. I think I might get home in like 25 minutes quicker on the way home, or maybe even more than that. So yeah, maybe half an hour quicker. So pretty good on a shallow uphill, this thing, and haven't really been trying too hard, to be honest, which isn't good for the old waistline, is it? But there you go. Here goes monkeys. Me when I die of cholesterol poisoning or something. Anyway, that'll be enough all of waffle. I might tag this together with a video of me looking at all the different bits on the standstill, which will probably be more useful for people. But there's some general waffle on the whole business, and say cheerio to the sky, and see you in the next video.